We will get back to Arsenal, but it's time now, as promised, to cross to Brazil, and we can speak to South American football expert Tim Vickery. Right, Tim, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the show. We're going to start with Southampton's new signing. We caught a glimpse of him last night. He was welcomed in front of his new fans, Carlos Alcaraz. What type of player are they getting?
They're getting a very almost traditional English type of midfielder, in that sense of the central midfielder who times the run into the box very, very well and has got a goal in him. The kind of Frank Lampard, Brian Robson school, if you like. He's only 20, but he's an established star now. He's last year was his real breakout year. He's had 3 years in and around the first team at Racing. And that gift of just the timing of the run, ghosting into the box with a goal in him, that makes him very, very useful. Obviously, at his age, he's a little bit raw, and there may be a little bit of a wild child in him. He may be one who might struggle with adaptation off the field. Southampton will have to play that one carefully. But he looks a very exciting player in that kind of mould of a central midfielder with a goal in him.
Forest are considering a formal offer for Palmeiras midfielder Danilo. How much would he cost, and what would he bring to Steve Cooper's side?
He's a little bit more of a defensive midfielder than Alcaraz. He's left-footed, very, very dynamic, gets around the field really well, wins the ball, passes, moves up, doesn't perhaps offer a great deal in the final third of the field. But he's a very interesting one, I think, Danilo, because he's 21. But he shows the way that the market operates with players coming straight out of South America. Because a few months ago, you were thinking of something much bigger than Forest, when Arsenal were interested and may just be interested again. We will see. He was called up for Brazil, June, for a tour that they did to Japan and South Korea. And I think that was a moment where he stepped up the level and, wow, this is a bit more difficult than I thought. He didn't get on the field, and he hasn't quite been the same player since. There's a fear at Palmeiras, if they don't sell him now, his value is going to plummet. Palmeiras have been burned a couple of times recently with potential wonder kids that they had offers for, they didn't sell, and a year later, the player's not worth nearly as much. And there's a real feeling that if they don't cash in on Danilo now, that his value might fall. I like him a lot. I think he can go into a Premier League side more or less straight away, especially with his old teammate Gustavo Scarpa there to kind of help him bed in a little bit. But it is fascinating that if they don't sell him now, they think that they won't get anything like as much for him in future transfer windows. I'm told that there's a possible impediment with financial fair play from Nottingham Forest. Palmeiras want around 20 million, above 20 million for him. I think Forest are offering a little bit less than that. So we've got a few days to play transfer window poker.
Tim, Roberto De Zerbi's certainly impressed since taking over the reins at Brighton, and it looks like he wants to bolster his squad. Can you tell us about a potential incoming at the Amex?
Well, this is not potential. This is already happening. He's already there. Facundo, Buonanotte. Now, Brighton are doing very well buying in from South America. That's a risk that you take, because you never know quite how they're going to adapt. And most of the Premier League clubs, they do kind of secondary scouting. They wait until the player has been sold to Europe, they have a look at him, and then they bring him in. Brighton are being bold. And in terms of Alexis McAllister, Moses Caicedo, it's paying off big time. Facundo Buonanotte he's only just turned 18. He's got 1 season behind him in Argentina. So this is more of a gamble. He's left-footed, plays on the right wing, cutting in. He was coached last year by Carlos Tevez in Tevez's first coaching job. And Tevez made a comparison there between Buonanotte and Lionel Messi. Now, that may well be placing the bar a little bit too high. If he's anything like Angel Di Maria, who's also left-footed and came from this club, Rosario Central, then Brighton will have done a very, very fine piece of business indeed. But here you're buying on promise rather than reality.
There's a lot of talk around Facundo Palestri at Manchester United, the youngster. Can you tell us what's happening there?
He's unhappy with his lack of first-team opportunities. I think that was his first chance that he got in the week, and he only had a few minutes and impressed there. Remember, this is a player now with a World Cup behind him, and he could probably argue that he was Uruguay's best attacking weapon in the World Cup. He was a player who got them higher up the field. So he's frustrated. He wants first-team opportunities, and I think he would want to go out on loan to a place that's going to use him. Now, there is a move here from Botafogo of Brazil. Botafogo are now owned by the American John Textor, who's got a stake in a number of clubs, including Crystal Palace. And this makes the Botafogo angle a little bit strange, because if you were United, the last thing you'd want to do is loan this player outside of Europe. That doesn't do anything for his transfer value. So quite why it's Botafogo and not maybe Crystal Palace is something of a mystery. But I'm told that Watford, and Watford scouting is usually very good, that Watford are also interested in taking this player on loan. And whoever does it gets a very interesting player. There's some pace in him. There's some tight dribbling skills. There's some vision of the game. He's not just a winger. He's an attacking midfielder as well. So I think a player who deserves something much better than just languishing on the bench or in the stands at Man United.
And Tim, as we've been saying, we're seeing a lot of South American players join the Premier League. What does that say? Is it something to do with the Premier League scouting system, that quality is being seen now over here?
Well, part of it has to do with leaving the European Union, I think, and less stringent entry requirements for players straight in from South America. But also Brighton. Brighton looking at, say, what Benfica do. Buy straight in from South America, fatten the calf and sell it on. And Brighton, with their place in the food chain, they realise that they can't compete for players with the big clubs. So they've got to be smarter. They've got to be a little bit braver, a little bit bolder. And credit to them, because certainly with Caicedo and McAllister, it's worked out wonderfully, wonderfully well. Remember, a couple of years ago, we were talking about Moises Caicedo being linked to Manchester United. They balked. They didn't go there. Brighton picked him up for an absolute song. They're getting first-class service from him, and they make an absolute financial killing when they sell him on.